Welcome back to House of Crimes. Today, we're diving into a truly tragic case, the case of 13-year-old Madeline Soto. It's a case that's really shaken the community and left us all, I think, with a profound sense of sadness.
Yeah. One of those cases that just really underscores the importance of vigilance and the truly devastating consequences that can occur when those entrusted with a child's care fail to protect them.
Yeah. Madeline was reported missing on February 26, 2024, from her home in Florida. The initial report filed by her mother's boyfriend, Stephan Sterns, stated that he had dropped Madeline off at Hunters Creek Middle School that morning. But as the investigation unfolded, that seemingly ordinary detail quickly became the first crack in a facade that would reveal a much darker reality.
Right. Surveillance footage obtained from the school revealed that Madeline never actually made it to school that day.
Oh, wow.
And as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a pattern of deception and disturbing behavior that pointed the finger squarely at Stephan Sterns.
So this early discrepancy in his story, this is really where things started to unravel.
Absolutely. That initial inconsistency prompted investigators to take a closer look at Sterns' actions on the day Madeline disappeared. They soon discovered additional surveillance footage, this time from a local parking garage, showing Sterns moving what appeared to be a lifeless body from the passenger seat of his car to the trunk.
Gosh, that's just hard to imagine what must have been going through the minds of those investigators as they watched that footage unfold.
I know. The footage was incredibly disturbing, and it provided a stark contrast to the initial narrative that Sterns had presented. At that point, it became clear that they were no longer dealing with a simple missing person case. This was rapidly evolving into a potential homicide investigation.
And sadly, those suspicions were confirmed just a few days later on March 1st, when Madeline's body was discovered in a wooded area off Hickory Tree Road in St. Cloud.
The location of the discovery, a secluded wooded area, and the fact that her body was partially concealed with hay and dry grass suggested a deliberate attempt to hide the crime. This wasn't a random act. This was calculated. This was cold.
This discovery, it must have sent shockwaves through the community.
Absolutely. The hope that had lingered during those 5 agonizing days of searching was extinguished. The focus shifted entirely to Stephan Sterns, and the evidence against him continued to mount.
You mentioned earlier a pattern of disturbing behavior. Can you elaborate on what investigators uncovered?
Certainly. During a search of Sterns' residence, investigators found evidence of attempts to conceal Madeline's disappearance. They also uncovered something far more sinister, approximately 1,700 explicit images stored on his Google Drive.
1,700 images. What was the nature of these images?
Some of these images allegedly involved Madeline. This discovery added another horrifying layer to the investigation and revealed a deeply disturbing aspect of Sterns' relationship with the young girl. It was no longer just a potential murder, it was now a case with implications of child sexual abuse.
This case just seems to get more and more unsettling with each new piece of information. What was Sterns' response when confronted with this evidence?
When questioned about the images, Sterns admitted to saving them, but then he immediately invoked his right to a lawyer, refusing to answer any further questions. This sudden silence, coupled with the mounting evidence, painted a grim picture.
So we have a suspect who initially provided false information about Madeline's whereabouts, who is seen on video moving a body, and who possesses a vast collection of explicit images, some allegedly involving the victim. It's hard to imagine a more damning set of circumstances.
You're right. The evidence was overwhelmingly pointing to Sterns as the perpetrator. But as the investigation progressed, another troubling question emerged. Was anyone else aware of the abuse that Madeline was enduring?
That's a question that has haunted this case from the beginning. And unfortunately, the answers we find only add to the complexity and the tragedy of this situation.
The investigation now turned its attention to Madeline's mother, Jennifer Soto. Investigators were trying to piece together what she knew and when, did she have any knowledge of the abuse that was taking place under her own roof?
This is where the case takes an even more heartbreaking turn.
It does. During initial interviews, both Jennifer Soto and Stephan Sterns provided conflicting and incomplete information. Their accounts were a confusing mix of half-truths and deflections, making it difficult for investigators to get a clear picture of what had transpired.
So there was a sense that they were both hiding something.
Exactly. But as the pressure mounted, Jennifer eventually made a shocking admission to police. She confessed that she was aware that Stephan Sterns had been grooming and abusing Madeline.
She knew.
Yeah.
and yet she did nothing to stop it. How could a mother allow such a thing to happen to her own child?
It's a question that has baffled and angered many who have followed this case. Jennifer's explanation for her inaction was both perplexing and deeply disturbing. She claimed that she didn't believe Sterns' actions were evil.
That's a difficult statement to comprehend.
Yeah.
To be aware of such abuse and not see it as evil, what could possibly lead a mother to such a conclusion?
It's a question that delves into the complex and often troubling dynamics of abusive relationships. It's possible that Jennifer herself was a victim of manipulation and control, perhaps even abuse at the hands of Stephan Sterns. This could have clouded her judgment and prevented her from taking decisive action to protect her daughter.
So, she may have been trapped in a cycle of abuse herself, unable to see the full extent of the danger her daughter was in.
That's certainly a possibility. It's also important to consider the psychological impact of grooming. Abusers are often skilled manipulators, able to gain the trust of both the victim and those around them. They can create an environment where abuse is normalized, making it difficult for others to recognize the warning signs.
Jennifer's inaction, regardless of the reasons behind it, sparked public outrage. Many felt that she should be held accountable for failing to protect Madeline.
Absolutely. The public outcry was immense. People were demanding justice for Madeline, questioning how a mother could stand by and allow such abuse to occur. The case ignited a heated debate about parental responsibility and the legal implications of failing to protect a child from harm.
But despite the public pressure, authorities ultimately decided not to charge Jennifer Soto with any crime related to Madeline's death. They cited insufficient evidence to prove that her actions, or rather her inaction, directly contributed to the murder.
That decision was met with mixed reactions. While some felt it was a miscarriage of justice, others acknowledged the difficulty of proving criminal negligence in such complex cases. The law often struggles to keep pace with the nuances of these tragic situations.
So while Jennifer Soto may not face legal consequences for her role in this tragedy, she will undoubtedly carry the weight of her choices for the rest of her life.
That's a burden that no parent should have to bear. But it's a stark reminder of the importance of recognizing the signs of abuse, of speaking up when something seems wrong, and of understanding the devastating consequences that can result from silence and inaction.
And while Jennifer's role in this case is deeply troubling, we must remember that the primary focus of the investigation remained on Stephan Sterns, the man accused of taking Madeline's life. As he awaited trial, Sterns began a campaign of his own, attempting to manipulate the narrative and deflect blame from himself.
That's right. From his jail cell, Sterns started writing letters, mainly to his parents, in which he desperately tried to paint himself as an innocent victim, suggesting that other individuals might have been involved in Madeline's disappearance and death. He spun tales of conspiracies and hidden agendas, hoping to sow seeds of doubt about the evidence against him.
These letters, they were a desperate attempt to control the narrative from behind bars, weren't they? To create a distraction from the overwhelming evidence pointing to his guilt.
Exactly. His letters were filled with self-pity, claims of innocence, and attempts to discredit the investigation. He tried to portray himself as a loving boyfriend who would never harm Madeline. But these attempts to rewrite history were transparent and ultimately futile.
Were investigators able to glean any useful information from these letters? Or were they simply the ramblings of a desperate man trying to escape accountability?
While Sterns' letters didn't offer any groundbreaking revelations, they did provide investigators with valuable insights into his psyche. They revealed a manipulative and narcissistic personality, someone who was willing to twist the truth to protect himself.
So his attempts to deflect blame actually backfired, providing further evidence of his deceitful nature.
Precisely. Every word he wrote was scrutinized not just for what he said, but also for what he didn't say. Any omissions, inconsistencies, or attempts to shift blame were carefully analyzed, adding to the growing body of evidence against him.
This case is a tragic example of how a web of deceit can ensnare not only the victim, but also those around them. Madeline's story has left a scar on the community, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives.
You're absolutely right. This case has forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about the prevalence of abuse, the complexities of family dynamics, and the systemic failures that can allow such tragedies to occur.
As we move into the final part of our deep dives, we'll delve into the legal proceedings against Stephan Sterns, the community's fight for justice, and the enduring legacy of Madeline Soto's story. We've been meticulously unpacking the details of Madeline Soto's case, and it's clear that this story is about more than just the horrifying actions of one individual.
You're right. It's also a stark reminder of the systemic failures that can allow such tragedies to occur.
The investigation revealed potential missed opportunities by the school system to identify and address the abuse Madeline was suffering.
Absolutely. Attendance records, for instance, could have raised red flags. Madeline's absences, particularly if they coincided with times when Sterns was known to be home alone with her, should have been a cause for concern. Additionally, teachers and school counselors are trained to recognize potential signs of abuse in children. Changes in behavior, withdrawal from social activities, or unexplained injuries can all be indicators that something is wrong.
It's heartbreaking to think that those who interacted with Madeline on a daily basis might have missed crucial signs that could lead to intervention.
And it's not just the school system. Child protective services also play a vital role in safeguarding children. While the details of their involvement in Madeline's case are not fully public, it's essential to examine whether any reports were made or if there were missed opportunities to intervene.
This case has sparked a broader conversation about how we as a society can strengthen our child protection systems. What steps can we take to ensure that cases like Madeline's don't slip through the cracks?
It's a complex issue, but there are several areas where we can focus our efforts. First, we need to improve communication and collaboration between schools, law enforcement, and child protective services. Sharing information and coordinating responses can help identify patterns of abuse and ensure that children at risk are protected. Second, we need to invest in training and resources for those on the front lines, equipping them with the knowledge and skills to recognize and address child abuse effectively. And finally, we need to create a culture where reporting suspected abuse is encouraged and supported. Breaking the silence is crucial to protecting children.
Madeline's case has been a painful wake-up call for many, a reminder that child abuse can happen anywhere and that we all have a responsibility to be vigilant.
It's essential to remember that protecting children is not just the responsibility of law enforcement or social services. It's a collective responsibility that requires the active participation of everyone in the community. We need to be aware of the signs of abuse, know how to report it, and be willing to speak up when we see something that doesn't seem right. Madeline Soto's story serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of child safety, the devastating consequences of abuse, and the need for collective action to protect our most vulnerable citizens.
We've reached the end of our deep dive into the Madeline Soto case. This has been a difficult journey filled with sorrow, anger, and frustration. But it's also a story that demands our attention, our reflection, and our commitment to creating a world where such tragedies are prevented.
Madeline's legacy lives on, not just in the memories of those who loved her, but in the ongoing efforts to strengthen child protection systems, raise awareness about abuse, and empower communities to stand up for the safety and well-being of all children.
If you or someone you know needs help, please reach out to the National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-4A-CHILD. You are not alone. And for continued coverage of this case and related issues, we encourage you to follow reputable news sources like FOX 35 Orlando and People. Thank you for joining us on this difficult but important journey.